Hey YouTube, it's Magician34. I have Merchant Sworn version 2 with me right here. You've already seen version 1, and you can certainly find it on my channel. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. To Judge, to Honest. I've changed some things. Turns out this deck is Lumina. Turns out this deck is actually a little bit more slow than I'd anticipated, which is weird. But the cool thing is it's still pretty consistent, and it does some neat tricks. So really now I'm just trying to make it more consistent and fine-tune it. I took it to my locals and only lost one match, and that one match I still would have won had I actually been able to find Plague Spreader out of 30 cards in my deck. He was basically in like the last 9 or 10 cards, and I couldn't find him, and so I couldn't win. Otherwise I could have used him to sink for Tempest to deal the last damage for game. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. Double Lila. Aaron, Jane, Garoth, Arcus, Shire. Interesting little inclusion, but she's just one more way to mill, which is important about her, and she's an interesting target, especially when you're considering sinking. You can hit her with Lumina and whatnot. And she's another, she's a different named Lightsworn. So, one more reason to run her. Ryko. I've gone down to 2 copies of Wolf. 1 copy of Celestia. We're not even running Foolish here, so not a whole lot of reason to run more. They kind of get in the way. Still 3 copies of Magical Merchant. He's still a great card to see, especially on your first turn. And obviously if you're going first, then that's the best, because you couldn't attack anyway, so good time to set. Plague. Necrocardno. 2 copies of the Mighty Shiny Black Sea. Stops so much stuff. It's crazy. And the best thing about Shiny Black Sea is that because he threatens to do something bad to your opponent, they never actually do it. So Shiny Black Sea can often scare away multiple synchros because they won't even summon the first one to get past the Shiny Black Sea. So you don't have to worry about that first synchro they would have summoned, but you don't have to worry about any they might have summoned afterward, because they just don't ever want to worry about it. So this guy almost pretty much shuts off synchros in a lot of cases, so he's actually pretty nifty. 2 copies of DD Crow, another great way to mess up so many of the meta decks. Gores. And one of the things I found about this deck that was surprising is I often have like a 6 or 7 card hand. It's pretty crazy. And to take advantage of that, we have Tragoedia. It can be somewhat debatable here. If you don't want to run Tragoedia, I'd recommend a 2nd copy of Ryko. Still not completely sure about it, still messing with the deck, but Tragoedia is actually pretty good in this deck. And of course, the stealing ability lets you, his ability to like bring control permanently allows you to ditch extra Lightsworns into your grave to possibly summon Judge too. So, he's a good addition. Storm. MST. Cold Wave. Definitely 2 reincarnations. This card is just a godsend in this deck. It allows you to ditch extra Lightsworns or Shiny Black Seas or whatever into your grave and then get that extra whatever you need. Like, usually you're going to be picking up Judge, but you also pick up Honest a lot with this. So, just an awesome, awesome card for this deck, especially for this build. And here's one that's been debatable, but it has saved my butt a couple of times. Because I end up having so many cards in my hand, I decided to try this. Magical Stone Excavation. You'd be surprised. You run very few spells, but you really want to reuse the ones you have. Using this to bring back, say, Heavy Storm can be devastating. It's also good for bringing back Charge to Mill or Solar Recharge to ditch extra cards like an extra Wolf out of your hand and go get something else. And not to mention this, of course, ditches other stuff from your hand as well. Because it's all about cycling to get the cards that you want in this deck. So, Excavation definitely does that, and it can also, of course, get you back this, Pot of Avarice. Still kind of risky, you definitely don't want to run more than 1 in my opinion from having run the deck, but a very good card. So I'm definitely not getting rid of it. Charge. 3 Solar Recharge still. And still 2 Beckoning Lights. Just almost always the Lightsworn kill. The extra deck's pretty much the same, so I'm not going to waste too much time on it. I have dropped the extra copy of Stardust because there's not really a reason to run it. Field Marshal is worthy of consideration. He's just a big giant monster, and killing set stuff to draw a card occasionally can be nice. Basically, Lumina plus Plague plus a 4-star equals this guy. That 4-star, of course, is in the grave, and Lumina gets it. Mistworm is another good idea. although you probably burned your normal summon to get the thing, so you won't have a lot of follow-up unless you have Judge in your hand. some people have asked me about this guy, why I run him in decks. Basically, you run this one copy in your extra deck because there are still decks that run Cyber Dragon, there are still gadget decks out there, and this can easily allow you to just sweep their field, especially if they do like the turn 1 Cyber Gadget and then whatever else. So it's actually a really cool way to just make their stuff completely disappear. You +1 yourself out of nowhere, and every one of their monsters that you sucked up to actually summon this thing was a -1 to your opponent, so it's a big card advantage thing. It's not so much about getting the monster or the size or anything. But, anyway, that's pretty much it, and the only other thing I can really think of kind of pertaining to what I was talking about earlier, Tempest actually does make sense in this deck. You may end up knocking your opponent down to like 1500 or less, but not quite killing them. It happens periodically, especially if you double judge. Sometimes you just don't have that extra oomph. But, you know, obviously a lot of 4-stars in this deck can combine to make this, well, Lila anyway. You just get Lila so much, she feels like more than 2 monsters in the deck. But she's definitely a good win condition. Remember, she gets that 1 counter automatically, and just the whole rest of your hand just adds up to extra counters. So she can definitely be a cool alternate win condition, so don't forget her. And since she's a super now in that special edition, there's no reason why you shouldn't own a Tempest. Alright, until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and enjoy.